Hey everyone, it is Amp King 101 bringing you some Madden 15 stats for the MSE Sim League. We are in week 12. We just finished week 11. And so I'm going to go over some of the stats and the standings that the teams and the overall players are looking at right now. Right now, we have in the AFC East, we have a very close race. We have the New England Patriots sitting at 7-3, one game ahead of both the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. Now, it's a very close race because all it takes is one slip up by the New England Patriots for the Jets or the Dolphins to catch up. And the Buffalo Bills, even though still in this race, very unlikely to come back. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in this division in the next 5 weeks as we approach playoffs. But currently, the New England Patriots are looking to head into the playoffs. Then you have the AFC North. You have the Baltimore Ravens, the most dominant team right now in the AFC. Sitting at 9-1. The most dominant team in the AFC, the number one seed, and tied for the number one in the league against the Minnesota Vikings, who are also 9-1. Also in the division, you have the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns, who are behind by 4 games, so I do not see them taking the division. However, they do still have a chance at a wild card spot. Both teams do. They're going to need to keep winning, but it's certainly a possibility. In the AFC South, you have the Houston Texans at 5-5. You have the Tennessee Titans at 3-7, and the Indianapolis Colts tied as well at 3-7, and the Jacksonville Jaguars at 2-8. Now, nobody in this division is out of the talks for playoffs yet. You have the Houston Texans, who are currently winning the division, but they're only winning the division by 2 games. Certainly not something you want to see from your team, from the whole division. A very, very poor division right now. But currently, they all still have a chance at playoffs. But you have 2 games, a 2-game lead with the Houston Texans against the Titans and the Colts, while the Jaguars still have a chance as they're 3 games away. I don't believe that they will be able to win all 3 of those games, and I don't see Houston Texans losing all 3 of those games, as well as the other ones. I don't see the Titans and the Colts not catching up if the Texans don't keep the lead. In the AFC West, you have the Denver Broncos leading the division with 7-3. You then have the San Diego Chargers 1 game behind with 6-4, and the Oakland Raiders 2 games behind the San Diego Chargers and 3 games behind the Denver Broncos. So this is the Denver Broncos division to lose. The Denver Broncos up by 1 game, but they will need to continue winning, and they need to hope that the Chargers will lose. However, if the Chargers are able to win their next game and the Broncos lose their next game, then they will tie Broncos for the lead in the division. However, the Broncos are starting to warm up. I don't see them losing their next game, and I see them maintaining the lead in the division. Then you have in the NFC East, you have the Washington Redskins and the Dallas Cowboys. Really a close run here, 1 game behind, 6-4 and 5-5, and then you have the Philadelphia Eagles that are 2 games behind the Washington Redskins. So while the Eagles still have a chance, it's going to be a very, very close race. I don't see the Washington Redskins losing consistently enough for the Eagles to catch up. I also don't see the Eagles winning consistently enough to catch up either. The Dallas Cowboys, however, could be surprising, as they could sneak by and get and win the division, depending on if the Washington Redskins can go on a winning streak. That also depends on if the Dallas Cowboys can also go on a winning streak, or if they continue to lose. Looking at the NFC North, another huge surprise: the Minnesota Vikings taking the league with 9-1, losing one game, the game to the Bears. A very interesting loss. Not something that many people saw coming, but it definitely puts them number one. They're still the number one seed in the NFC, and they are tied for the number one overall in the league with the Baltimore Ravens. You then have the Green Bay Packers, who, by all intents and purposes, should be leading the league, but because they are against the Minnesota Vikings, at 8-2, they are still one game behind, leading their division. And then you have the Detroit Lions, who are 5-5, and you have the Chicago Bears, who are 5-5. So none of these teams are out of the playoff run. Any one of these teams could still take a wild card. I believe that the Packers, if they don't take the division by the Vikings, which I don't think they will, I think the Vikings will still take their division, but the Packers are guaranteed a wild card spot unless they fall apart. But the Lions and the Bears are still in position, depending on what happens with the rest of the league, to take a wild card position. Then you have the NFC South. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 7-3 against the Atlanta Falcons at 6-4. You have the Carolina Panthers, who are 5-6. That means that the Carolina Panthers, while not out of the playoff race, certainly need to do everything in their power to continue winning. They go against the Atlanta Falcons one more time, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have this division, and it's their division to lose right now. They have been a very powerful team so far, especially with Doug Martin, but they have a couple injuries. So while it is difficult to maintain the lead of the division right now, it's definitely going to come down to how the Panthers and the Falcons play their next week and the next time that they play that will really shape the way this division looks. And the New Orleans Saints, the worst in the league right now, at 0-10, looking at a possible number one overall pick. Then you have the NFC West. You have the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers, both fighting for the divisional win right now at 7-3. You then have the St. Louis Rams, who are 4-6 right now, and they are 3 games behind both the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. My prediction is that if the Seahawks or the 49ers do not take their division, one of them will take the other wild card spot. That is speculation at the moment. However, the way that this is shaping up is a huge run. 2 powerful defensive teams. They've both been fairly good on offense. It's definitely going to be an interesting run, to say the least. But altogether, a very, very close race. Now, looking at the standings, as far as they shape up for seeds, you still have the Baltimore Ravens at 9-1, and they're 4-1 in the division, and it's 6-1 in the conference. Whereas you have the number 2 seed tied between the Broncos and the Patriots at 7-3, with the Broncos having a 2-1 divisional and a 4-2 conference, whereas you have the Patriots with a 3-0 division and a 7-2 conference. For the 4th seed, you have the Texans with a 5-4 record, 1-1 in the division, 3-2 in the conference. You have the Chargers with the 5th seed, 6-4 with 2-2 in the division and 4-4 in the conference. You have the number 6 seed with the Jets, with the 6-4 record, 1-1 in the division and 5-2 in the conference. So the number 2 to 6 spots look to change somewhat significantly over the next 5 weeks. And on the bubble, you have the Dolphins, who were 6-4, 1-2 in the division and 4-3 in the conference. You have the Buffalo Bills, who are 5-5 record, 1-3 in the divisional, and 4-3 in the conference. And then you have the Bengals, who are 4-5 in the record, and 1-2 in the division and 4-3 in the conference. So while these are not exactly perfect stats, as some of the win-loss are a little bit different. This is the way they stand right now, because the Bengals right now are 5-5. You got the Browns, who are kind of on the bubble with 5-5 as well. But that's what the statistics are looking at as far as the seeds are on the AFC side. Now looking on the NFC side, you have the number 1 seed with the 9-1 Vikings, 2-1 in the division, 7-1 in the conference. You have the Seattle Seahawks, who are 7-3, 1 in the divisional, 1-0 in the divisional, and 4-2 in the conference. And then you have the Bucks, who are tied for second with 7-3. They've won all 4 divisional games, and so they're 4-0 in the division, 6-2 in the conference. So looking really good there. The seed for number 4 is the Washington Redskins, 6-4, with 1-2 in the divisional and 3-4 in the conference. Green Bay Packers showing 7-2. They're actually 8-2 right now, but 3-1 in the division, 6-1 in the conference. Then you have the San Francisco 49ers at the 6th overall seed with 7-3, showing 2-1 in the division and 6-2 in the conference. On the bubble, you have the Falcons, Dallas, and the Bears. The Falcons at 6-4 with a 2-2 divisional, 5-3 conference. You have Dallas with 2-0 in the division, 3-4 in the conference, and then you have the Bears with 5-5, 1-2 in the division, and 3-4 in the conference. We're going to take a little look at the offensive players now, or the leaders in the league of players. We have in the offensive category, we have the passing leader in yards, Tom Brady, with 2,510 yards. You have Andrew Luck just below him with 2,467 yards. You have Phillip Rivers with 2,353 yards, Peyton Manning with 2,349 yards, and Matt Ryan with 2,342 yards. With the rushing yards, you have Adrian Peterson well in the lead with 1,500 rushing yards. You have Marshawn Lynch coming in with 1,257 rushing yards. Frank Gore, you have 947. LeSean McCoy with 945, very close there. And Doug Martin with 911. So while Marshawn Lynch and Adrian Peterson definitely have a large margin of difference there, the rest of them are all very, very close, 3 and below. Receiving yards, you have Brandon Marshall with 1,072 yards, Rob Gronkowski, the tight end, with 1,005 yards, Julio Jones with 776 yards, Harry Douglas with 739 yards, A.J. Green with 695 yards. So a pretty close race there. Brandon Marshall and Rob Gronkowski having a pretty significant lead, but having Julio Jones and Harry Douglas there, very interesting. 2 players from one team having the most receiving yards in the number 3 and 4 position. On the defense, you have Luke Kuechly with 86 tackles, John Beeson with 73, Jaquan Williams with 72, Nate Irving with 71, and Derek Johnson with 70. As far as sacks go, you have Terrell Suggs, 18, Gerald McCoy, 14, Antonio Smith, 10, Brian Arakpo, 10, and Iverson Griffin with 9. An interesting one there, especially with Terrell Suggs. He has 1 interception as well, so definitely trying to look for Defensive Player of the Year. Interceptions, you have Harrison Smith and Robert Alford tied in first with 8 interceptions. You have Chris Harris Jr. With 7 interceptions, Stephen Gilmore with 6, and Deshaun Goldson with 6. So definitely an interesting shape up there as well. So Tom Brady this season has put up 184 completions of 303 attempts with a 61% completion percentage, 2,510 yards with an 8.3 average, with 19 touchdowns and 22 interceptions. I believe the most interceptions so far this season belong to Tom Brady. But certainly making a big comeback from the beginning of the season. Adrian Peterson with 218 attempts with 1,500 yards with a 6.9 average. 77, it was his longest run, and he's had 13 touchdowns this season. Brandon Marshall of the Chicago Bears with 65 receptions, 1,072 yards, 16.5 average. His longest was an 82-yard pass. Was an 82-yard reception with 8 touchdowns. Here we have Luke Kuechly of the Carolina Panthers with 86 tackles, leading in tackles so far. 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 5 interceptions. Certainly off to an amazing start. And he still has 5 more games to try to reach the Defensive Player of the Year. Certainly one of the contenders for that. Another contender for the Defensive Player of the Year is Terrell Suggs. 47 tackles, 18 sacks, and 1 interception. Has definitely been a big player for the Baltimore Ravens. Robert Alford tied for the lead with interceptions. 22 tackles and 8 interceptions. Definitely has not gotten an interception in the last couple of weeks, but he started out this season just as a dominant figure in the Atlanta defense. And Harrison Smith of the Minnesota Vikings tied as well for the number 1 in interceptions on defense, with 31 tackles and 8 interceptions, putting together a great season so far as well with that free safety position. The Minnesota Vikings definitely been a big player for them on defense. Talking about the leaders of the league, we are looking at teams now. Total offensive yards per game is Philadelphia Eagles with 370.7 a game. And just under them is the Green Bay Packers with 350.7. Washington Redskins falling just short of that with 338. And the Denver Broncos with 330. Seattle Seahawks coming just in at 5 with 326 per game. Passing yards per game, it also goes to Philadelphia Eagles with 249.5. But then you have the Cincinnati Bengals at 242. The Green Bay Packers fall to third in the passing yards with 239. The Chicago Bears with 234. And New England Patriots 234. For rushing yards per game, the Minnesota Vikings lead with 162.8. But coming very close is the Seattle Seahawks in number 2 with 155.9 rushing yards per game. As the San Francisco 49ers come in at 154.5, and then the Philadelphia Eagles with 121.2, and the St. Louis Rams with 116. With the league leaders on defense, the Baltimore Ravens' total defense is 191.1 yards allowed per game. The best in the NFL. I mean, the best in the league so far. The Miami Dolphins are next with 225.3, a big differential margin from the Baltimore Ravens. Falling to third is the New York Jets with 241 yards per game. Minnesota Vikings coming just after that with 248.5. And then the San Diego Chargers fall to 5 with 253.1 yards allowed per game. In the passing yards per game, Baltimore Ravens are yet again number one, but with 136.4. But the New York Jets move up to number 2 with 162.5. Then you have the Seattle Seahawks with 169.9. And then the Oakland Raiders are the 171.2. You have the Miami Dolphins coming just under that with 171.3. So literally a 0.1 differential there. In rushing per game, you have Minnesota Vikings doing a great job at stopping the run with 53.1 yards allowed per game in the rush. Miami Dolphins just under that with 54. Baltimore drops to number 3 here with 61.7 a game. And the San Francisco 49ers with 65, and then the San Diego Chargers with 71.7. So a pretty close race altogether with the offenses, but with the defenses, the clear-cut winner is the Baltimore Ravens. All right, now we're going to take a quick look at some of the rookies around the league. With the passing yards leading is the rookie quarterback Blake Bortles with 2,265 yards. In rushing yards, you have Isaiah Crowell with 336 yards. You have Calvin Benjamin leading the receiving yards with 694. So on offense, the rookies are really shaping up as far as the standouts. Blake Bortles and Johnny Manziel definitely standing out as some of the top in the pack. Derek Carr just under 2,000 yards, so not doing too bad. We'll take a little closer look here in a second. But as far as rushing yards, you have Isaiah Crowell of Cleveland with 336 yards. One of the best rookie running backs to come in. Lorenzo Taliaferro at 281 yards. Definitely trying to become a big impact player, but after the big injury in Atlanta, just falling short, and one of the reasons that they're having a big problem with running back, with their running backs. You got Trey Mason, who's broken just over 200, and then Johnny Manziel in his rushing with 189 yards rushing. Just a huge statistic for a quarterback there, especially a rookie quarterback. You have, in the receiving yards, you have Kelvin Benjamin with 695, Sammy Watkins from Buffalo with 518, Allen Robinson you have 393, and Eric Ebron with 391, and Mike Evans as well with 391. Over in the defense, on tackles, you got LaMarcus Joyner with 70 tackles, Ryan Shazier with 62 tackles, Calvin Pryor with 51 tackles, Clinton Dix with 50, and Desmond Southward with 37. With sacks, you have Jadeveon Clowney leading the pack of the rookies with 6 sacks, Will Sutton with 3, Kari Fort with 2, Anthony Barr with 2, and Aaron Donald with 2. As far as interceptions go, Kyle Fuller with 4, as well as LaMarcus Joyner and Justin Gilbert and Jason Verrett, all getting 4 interceptions, and Anthony Barr coming in at 5 with 2 interceptions. We have the leader in the league here, Bortles, as far as rookies go, with 222 completions, 330 attempts. His completion percentage has been 67 with 2,265 yards, 69 average, 14 touchdowns, no sacks, and 10 interceptions. And his quarterback rate is 87.6. So overall, had a pretty good season. Needs a little bit of work, but as a whole, has been very, very good for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Leading the halfbacks, you have Isaiah Crowell as a rookie with 95 attempts, 336 yards. His average is 3.5 yards. His longest has been 23, and he's had 3 touchdowns. So putting together a rather good rookie season. Definitely wishes he had more touchdowns, but a very cohesive season. We have the wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin of the Carolina Panthers, who's had 48 receptions for 695 yards. His longest has been for 51 yards, 14.5 average for 5 touchdowns. He's been a big target for Cam Newton. Leading the rookies in tackles is LaMarcus Joyner of the St. Louis Rams with 70 tackles, 0 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 4 interceptions. Definitely made an impact as a rookie. Someone who is definitely going to continue to grow. Leading in sacks on the rookies, you have Jadeveon Clowney of the Houston Texans. 24 tackles, 6 sacks. So he has definitely been finding a way to get to the quarterback and helping out J.J. Watt, very much so in that pass rush. As for the interception leader of the rookies, you have Kyle Fuller of the Chicago Bears. 31 tackles and 4 interceptions. He has made a multitude of turnovers that have really helped out his team. So that's it for Week 11 and the recap that we've had so far this season. I'd like to thank DaddyLeagues.com for their site that has compiled all this information. It's DaddyLeagues.com, and I will do another one as we approach the end of the season. Probably as we enter playoffs, I will do another around the league look at how the league has shaped up and how it will be looking going forward into Season 2 of the MSE Sim League. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in, and good night.